Thank you very much, Gamal. Well, congratulations to Brian and everyone at the Human Renaissance Foundation, and especially Gamal and Antonio for putting this magnificent volume of essays together. In anticipation of today, I reread the presentation that I gave to the conference in 2017. So much has happened since then, and yet so much remains the same. Even before the pandemic, some economists were espousing a new economics that recognised home, family and care as of equal importance to the state and the market, and one that recognises our shared role as stewards for our limited world resources. Lockdown has helped many of us reevaluate what's important in our own lives. Some are calling for a greater emphasis on a culture of care. And I'm sure we've all noticed and celebrated carers during these last long months. A truly caring society would welcome and celebrate difference in human beings and would strive to support people who struggle to cope in our complex world, people who need extra help to live an ordinary life. So during the pandemic, most of us have had to spend much more time at home than we might have liked. But there are some who don't live in an ordinary place called home, even in ordinary times, people who don't belong to a family household. And this has been even more true during the pandemic. We've all heard stories in the news about elderly people in care homes who haven't been able to see their families and friends. And they may have been able to enjoy the kind of social support that Lord Best spoke about from within their residential or supported living setting. But how many people know what has been happening to people with intellectual disabilities? You see, about half of all adults with learning disability who are known to services live in care homes or in supported tenancies. And their support bubbles were tenants or residents and staff. During the pandemic, people and their families had a choice: either stay in the care setting and risk not seeing family and friends, or go home to stay with elderly parents. Both brought risks. The mortality rate for people with intellectual disabilities has been similar or higher than the mortality rate for over 65s. And not just for those living in congregate settings. And for those who already lived with family, the usual routines of daycare, social activities and so on all stopped, so that the care that families suddenly found themselves providing grew exponentially. My son lives next door to us. He needed nursing through COVID last March, and since then has spent every day in my house. His girlfriend remains in residential care. They haven't been allowed to see each other for 10 months. But we've enjoyed bringing in the food deliveries and peeling carrots together. We've learned and shared some important lessons. The internet has been a lifesaver for everyone who's been able to get online. I've contributed to many webinars. I've enjoyed listening to many more. My work has come home, even my parliamentary work. And the work of the charity that I founded, Books Beyond Words, has created new free wordless stories, as well as guidance for families and carers to help them manage this time better at home. We started with a wordless story called Beating the Virus, based on my son's experience. Here it is in German. Not that it matters very much if you don't speak German, because in fact, once you get past the title page, it's entirely in pictures. It's probably been downloaded 100,000 times because it was free. And we've expanded it to include being tested for COVID and now being vaccinated. We moved on to mental health recovery stories for children and adults because of the increased stress that the uncertainties and privations of recent months have caused. We've succeeded in connecting many people by creating online book clubs where our stories can be screen shared and discussed by the members. This has meant people having to get online and learning to use Zoom. Travel problems used to be the main barrier to getting people with intellectual disabilities together. Now it's having the hardware and the digital skills. But it's been easier than we thought getting people online. They've usually needed one-to-one support to build their confidence, and we've often needed to buy people a tablet too. In some ways, we found that discussing experiences and feelings in the safety of their own home has proved easier than getting a group started in a library. And that's where, in normal times, our book clubs take place. I can hear my son in the next room chatting to somebody on Skype. He might even come and join us, who knows? Home is a safe and accepting place for most of us. But we've had to create resources about domestic abuse as well, stories that are sadly needed more than ever in lockdown. And the power of these wordless stories is in their empowerment of a marginalised minority who seek to belong, but face barriers of ignorance and attitudes which exclude. My role as an advocate in many leadership positions is to invite others, people who don't have somebody in their family with intellectual disability, to stop and think. What about people with intellectual disabilities and or autistic people? How many people considering a situation will ask themselves, how would it affect people with intellectual disabilities? When you look at a subject, a situation, an issue, a policy, whether you have in your mind as the first question, how would this affect people with intellectual disabilities? If we did that, would we be more likely to get it right for everybody else than the other way around? If we wait and ask that question last, it's too late. You don't think about people with intellectual disabilities, unfortunately, unless you have somebody in your family. You probably don't have the language. You may not quite know how to talk about it because it's not part of your everyday conversation. Empowerment and having social relationships of different kinds go hand in hand. We all know that our mental health is better when we feel in some small measure in control. It may be an illusion, but that sense of empowerment is really, really fundamental. That you aren't always somebody who's being told what to do, that you belong. Gamal, could you just show my last couple of slides? You see, this can start with an ordinary home in an ordinary street. And if you move on to the next slide, along with a disability arts charity called Access All Areas and partners at the Open University, 2 or 3 years ago, we created the Belong Manifesto. And it addresses the essential elements of mental health and well-being that are actually relevant to all of us. But we put it in words that the actors we were working with, the actors with intellectual disabilities and autism, described. Being active and healthy, enjoying our friends and family and showing them we care, loving ourselves and welcoming other people's love and support, and accepting help when things go wrong. Ordinary things like choosing where we live and what we do and share. And new things to make our life more interesting, like drama, drawing, singing, but learning something new, having a reason to get out of bed in the morning. And probably the most important one is being able to give something to other people. And that seems to correlate more with mental health for all of us than any of the others. So these were all really important things. And the last slide. This is just some people sharing books together. My son's one of the people in the story on the right. And the next slide. So the Belong Manifesto addresses the essential elements of mental health and well-being, all relevant to the book the Home Renaissance Foundation is launching today. Can you finish the slides, please, Gamal? And I just wanted to say that somewhere I've got my copy of the book. I'm just really proud to be part of today's launch and to commend this book to you. Thank you very much for inviting me.